All right, good day everyone. Today just want to go through this project. The main aim of this application is to show how you can consume an API using .NET. Particularly, we are going to use our MVC as our front end so that we can be able to consume this API. So without wasting any time, let's just go through the scenario that we need to solve. So we have to go through this scenario before we can start with our project. Many students use mobile web applications every day, but they do not understand how these apps get live information from external services. These include the APIs and include an API that we will be using today. So you as a developer, you are required to come up with a small application that will be the .NET 1 using MVC, and this application should be called City Weather Tracker. What is the main job of this application? It is to allow a user to search for their city that they want to check the weather, and once they do that, they will be able to see the current weather information at that time, and this will be achieved by using a free API. So the system must also be able to take all the information that is shown to the user, store that information that has to do with that weather into a database, and the database of our choice will be the SQL one, so that the user can go back and check. Maybe they want to build a report to see the weather patterns in a month or in a week. They can be able to do that. Okay, so the aim of this project is to ensure that you know how to consume an API inside of .NET. And we will be using MVC. We'll be able to read JSON data, and then we save information inside of an SQL. We have to use a beautiful user interface. This will be the view part. I already have the views, so I'll just share the views so that you can be able to go and load it in your application, but everything else will start from scratch. Right, let's start. Okay, you're going to open your Visual Studio. I'm using 2022. You can use the current one, that is fine, and this is a free one. So let's start a new project. Okay, before we can start the project, I need to explain how the application is going to work. So when a user opens our application, this application should have a capability of allowing the user to type for a city. Let's say they search Johannesburg. What the system will do is that it needs to send that city name to this public free API. And the API should be returning a couple of details that are surrounding that particular city. The details that I'm looking for, I need to know the city name, the country, the latitude, and the longitude. So you can have more, but for me to make sense of the information that is coming back, I feel that that's enough. So now, then the system will use the latitude and longitude to ask for the weather that we need. Then in that case, we'll be able to get the weather back onto us. Then that will be displayed in our system. And then at the same time, the same information will be stored into our database. So that is what we are going to use, nothing much. So I'm just going to tell you ahead of the technologies that we will use here. One is ASP.NET Core MVC. And then number two is Entity Framework Core. And then SQL Server. And then Bootstrap. This will be our views. I've already done that. We'll just share the code. And then the API that we're going to use, it is called Open-Meteo API. It's the word open, Meteo, METEO. That is the API that we are going to use. So I mentioned SQL Server. We are going to use SQL Server Management Studio as our database engine. And then the entity framework. This is what it's going to allow us to write C# code and be able to perform SQL queries in our database. So that is why we are going with that too. So for those who have not done MVC, you just, when you open it, you're going to click there on the search button and type MVC, press enter. But if you have used it before, it should appear this side. Once you are done, look for the one that has green C#, click it, you'll see that it has a green fill color. As you can see that when I go to the other one, there is a fill gray color that is associated with it. And then you are going to click next for me. Then we were told that we must give this application city weather tracker. So just going to copy that name. I'll go back there. And then let me just make sure that I don't have a space on that name. Then we can add this step there. Then the location, you can keep it where it is if you want. If you have a special folder, then navigate it into that. But make sure that this box is ticked so that your project folder are in the same parent folder. Click next. Okay, for me, I'm using .NET 9. The version is important. So for those who are using the current Visual Studio, could be Visual Studio 2026. You might see that you have 10 there. I would suggest that you use that. But because I have 9, I'll use 9. It won't be different. But for me, it will be like some of the packages, they will have a higher version. So I'll have to demote them a bit so that my application works perfect. So authentication, we don't need it. This is where you want to allow the user to sign in, register their profile before they can use your services. I don't want that. Then we are going to leave this box ticked. I'm going to leave this because I like, if you've used C# before, you will see that the new one, when you open your class, it's blank. There is no namespace, structure, class structure. So I don't like it like that. I want it to have those things because it helps me to see what is happening there. But some people are comfortable with that. That's still okay. Just click create. You can give it some few seconds. There we go. So the very first thing that we need to do now is to install packages. Because I know that I'll be using a database and we identified that there is SQL Server. And in order to use the database, I said we will be using Entity Framework Core. That means that we will need to run migration at some stage to assist in the creation of a table or database. So before I can do anything, look there at the top, find tools, You click it and then you navigate to Nugget Package Manager. And then you go for the middle one. This is where we get our tools or packages. Then click there. Right, so the first time when you click it, it's going to stay here on the install. You can see with that blue borderline there, you want to go to browse because we need to search. So you can type SQL Server just like that, then press enter on your keyboard. You have to make sure that it comes from Entity Framework. You'll see it with that square, the light blue, or whatever color that one it is. It will be written EF inside. And it must come from Microsoft, that Entity Framework Core.SQL. Click it once, then go all the way to this side. You tick your project. This will ensure that the next time when you come back, you don't have to come and tick it. You will remember that. The version there, that is important. For if you use the .NET 10, then you can leave it like this. But for me, because I used 9, I need to demote this. Should be safe, I'll go to 9.0. Because if you use .NET 10 and you leave it .NET 9 and then you leave it at 10, it will cause issues. So rather do it now before you get frustrated when you go and test your application. So just click install, give it some time, and then you say apply, accept. Okay, we're done with the setting up of the database. Now to do this, we'll need to perform migration in order to create the database tables and the database itself into our SQL Server Management Studio. So we will need tools. So you can just say search tools there and press enter. Give it some time. Sometimes when it does this, it's a little bit confused. You can help it by expanding your search. You can see there. So I'll just say entity not framework core. And I'll press enter. Need to put tools there. Put tools. You can cut it, stop it. Still loading, so we need to wait for it to give us. Sometimes it does take its own time. Okay, now it's back, so I can go and paste what I was searching. Okay, that took unusual time. So it must come from Entity Framework as well. It's from Microsoft. This is the one that's going to allow us to perform the queries. Not the queries, the migration. So you can read down there to see the details of what it does. So for me, what I want is to be able to add migration so that I can be able to create my database with its corresponding tables. So I'll downgrade the version as well to 9.0, then I'll install, then apply, accept. Okay, and then you can click on install just to see what is there. They have to be there, so I can see now we do have both of them. I'm happy. Can close this. close, and then say save. Now, let's start. So it's important to know what is the structure of your project. So the good thing with MVC is that we are given 3 folders, which is what MVC stands for. The controllers handle the request, the model represent your data scheme or how your data is supposed to look like, and then your views, this is what the user will see in terms of the user interface. So I will need another folder that will store open and close, open and double quotes and close double quote database. So C# itself, it does not allow you to create a database. What we do is to use our entity framework to assist us to do that. So usually we create a class that will inherit with an entity framework or form a relationship with entity framework so that we can be able to create a database. So I need to create a folder that will handle that part, and I want it to sit alone. So I'll right click the name of my solution, then I'll go to add, then I'll click new folder. Then we normally call this folder data. So database will go there. Model stores how your table is supposed to look like in a database. So there you can just say that we're dealing with the database and the tables that are empty. What goes inside of those tables in terms of the columns will be stored inside of your models. All right. So again, since I want to use an external service, it makes sense that I don't go and cluster my controllers because that will be form part of request. So I'll need to have another folder that its job will be to connect with the API. So right click, add folder, and we'll say services. Then the last one is we do have the view folder that deals with the user interface. So sometimes I want to pull data inside of a model, but I don't want to mess up with my database table scheme. So I want to show the user something that is not part of the model class, and I don't want to store that particular data inside of a table. So what do? I'll create a middleman that will work with some sort of data that is going to be showed or displayed to the user side. That data is not stored into the database, just to ensure that the user get as much information as they can. So I'm going to create another folder that is called, we normally call them view models. So the name itself should tell you it is the views what the user will see, data from the model, but we are not storing these into our database. Okay, that is that. So now the first thing, you can approach this in how you want. You can start anywhere. It's different according to people. So as we read the scenario, one of the big thing is the application should be able to track the city that is searched and its corresponding information. So I want to be able to save everything that the user performs in terms of searching the city, so that we store that as a history of cities or the queries that have been performed into that external API. So now I want to go and create a table that will, its job will be to store every search that takes place. So we are going to design what information do we want when the user search for a particular city. So all right, so we know that tables goes inside of models. You right click models, then you say add, we deal with a class. So everything that goes there, it is a class. So we are going to give this class a name. We always use Pascal casing. The first word must be a capital letter. The second word must be a capital letter. So we'll just call this search history. Then some people prefer to put .cs. It's fine. It just shows that this is a C# class. Or you can leave it. MVC will do it for you. Perfect. So that is what we have now. So inside here, we said this represents a table. We know a table, it is a combination of columns and rows. So what we need to know in order to guide the user on the type of information that should be stored, I would like to refer to these as columns. Let's create the columns of our tables. The columns in C# or MVC, we refer to them as properties. So this class job will be to represent one search record that will be used to store the information that we request, and it will go inside of our database. So that is important. So the very first thing that we need to do is to create a primary key. So this primary key will be our unique number that will be associated with each search that is happening. Remember, this goes into our database. So either way, MVC needs it. Whether you want to use it or you don't want it, it will need it. So the first thing that you need to do when you're dealing with MVC is to create an ID or a primary key. So you're going to say public. It's always an integer because that's a whole number, and then you do your get and setters. Remember, this will be the primary key in the database table. Okay, now we will need to know the city name. So this property will store the, okay, I'm not sure what happened. I'm using CapCut there. Let's go back to my application. All right, so now we need another property that will store the name of the city that the user searched for. So that is a string. It's a shortcut to create a property. prop, you press tab. Then it will just do it for you. You change the data type, city name, it is a string. And then we can call this city name. You'll notice that I'm using Pascal casing. Then I'll also need to know the country. I explained this at the start of the video. That we also need to know where this city is in terms of the country. So I'll just say prop. It is a string as well. And then I will call this country. Then we need the latitude. So this will store the latitude of the city, prop. And then this is double because that number is long. It can be a whole number. So we're going to call this latitude. Latitude goes with longitude. I'll take what IntelliSense is giving us. Then lastly, we need to know when this search has occurred in terms of the date. So prop tab, the data type here for time, we use what we call date type. Then let's give this, we will call this searched on. So I like to call this to sound like it is a question while it's not a question. So you realize that we have this green squiggly line here. So do me a favor, go in front of the data type, shift question mark, so that you can tell MVC that this field can be nullable. I've seen that this causes issues that the information does not want to go inside of a database because of that, because it's expecting information when you run your application the first time. So let's make them nullable for now. You can say equals to empty string.empty, and then, or you can do it like that. It's much neat and it is short. Control S to save, or you can just click these two guys there. You save everything. I'm not gonna close it because we might come back and need the information here, so just leave it. So now, what we need now is to create a table, open and close double quote, sort of a table and a database. And I said, I will hide that inside of my data just to separate the responsibility of my application to make it neat as well. So we are going to use Entity Framework to do this. Entity Framework provide us with an inbuilt class that is called DB Context. So DB Context, it is the main class that is used by Entity Framework Core in order to create, read, update, and delete. I mentioned the CRUD functionalities here of with the database. So anything that you want to do inside of a database, you use DB Context. So this is not special. I said it's a class. So let's go and create a class, a normal class. You right click data, you go to add, then you say class. So the naming here, it's up to you. A lot of people like to call this app DB Context, or just go in full application DB Context. We normally do it like that. I've never seen anyone who calls this differently. It's either it's FDB context or application DB context. Then click it. Okay. So because this is a concrete class, it does nothing special. It's the same as this search history class. So in order for us to allow this class to work with the database, we said we need to borrow from DB context. How do we get DB context to come into the scene? We inherit it. So you're going to go in front of the name of your class, put a cursor there at the end, columns. And then you can leave a space. I like to leave a space, it doesn't matter, so that it's clean. Then just type DB context, just like that. So when you are large, it must be gray. You will see that there is a statement. Let me just reduce this or put it to 150. I'm not sure if you can still that. Let's put it to 180. Perfect. When you are large, you'll notice that if you were paying attention, there was nothing there. But all of a sudden, there is entity framework code that has been imported here, this package. We didn't install it, but now it's here. It comes, it's the guy that holds this DB context class. So don't forget that. If it's not there, you get an error there. You just position your cursor wherever you have an error. You press Control, you click full stop once. You'll see something like this, and one of it will tell you to install Entity Framework Core, or go to Tools, you go to Nugget Manager, and then you go to the middle one, and then you go and install it like how we did it at the beginning. You'll search it there, and then you install it. Okay, that. So now we need to create a constructor. Now, the constructor's job will be to receive the database option from the program.cs. The program.cs, it is the main engine of this application. And then these options, I like to refer to them as configurations or settings that allows you to interact with the database. So this option will tell MVC which database provider, we're talking about the SQL engine here, which one to use. We are using SQL Server. to use and how to connect to that database. So let's create a constructor. There's a shortcut to do that. You're going to write CTOR and then press tab. So a constructor will have the same name as your class. So you are constructing. It does not exist. You're building something new that it's not part of your application in this stage. So the reason that we are constructing this is because we need the database configurations or options that will be coming from the program.cs in order to tell the application what database flavor we are using SQL Server to do that. So inside of the parentheses where my cursor is blinking, we are going to get those database configurations or setting, as I like to refer to them. It's called DB context. So you always want to go with this one that I just highlighted, and you can see that it has two angle brackets. So you're going to, when you look at there, you can see that it is expecting, okay, let me get it back. Say DB context, then I'll have it there. Okay, you can see that it's expecting you to pass the T context there, and they say this is used to create instances of this class. It is not designed to be directly constructed in your application code. So we also need to pass something here. Remember, now I'll double click it. So we are borrowing DB context, which has the settings, the configuration that this DB context is coming from this guidance. It's the options that we are looking for. So I'll put the angle brackets. So where do you want, or would you want to give these options or configuration or settings? Remember, we are turning this class to something special now, so that you can be able to create a database and the tables that are coming in to allow anyone to perform queries to you. So who do we want to give these options? Him or her. So you just get the name, pass inside of this. Yeah, copy it twice there, copy, paste. Then for space wise, I'm just gonna move it down so that you're able to see. So after doing that, you need to provide all of these things that we've done here in the constructor, give it a name. So we like to call these options. This is the name that we prefer to call it. So after that, because you did an inheritance there, it also need to know who is the parent class. So you're going to identify the parent class by putting your colons, then you write base, then you open your parentheses. Inside there you're going to pass options. So this is needed so that you tell this whole statement that we did, the DB context, it is the parent class. Now, inside here, I'll remove a space like that. Inside, you don't put anything inside the body of a construct. It must be empty. So that is why I'm leaving like that, so that you don't make a mistake and put something that will open a little bit of space so that you don't do anything. Lastly, depending on the number of model class, so this is linked. Remember we said model. We have the tables there. So we only have one model class, which is the search. This one is auto-generated. So I need to create a property that will link to that model class so that we can create a table name. So how I'm gonna do it, it's a property of say prop tab, and then we change the data type. The data type will be db set. And then you notice that the db set comes with the angle brackets. So you're going to put your angle brackets inside. It's asking, you want me to create a table. Where should I get the table schema, or where would I get the table columns as I refer to it? We already created a class which is called search history. So all you need to do is to call the class. You call it exactly as it is. So it's search history, double click it so that it goes there. So here it is the name of your table. This is what it's going to appear in your database. So I'll double click it, remove it, and then we'll call this search history. You can give it any name you want. So that, click save. So now I'll close this because I'm not gonna need it anytime soon. And then I'll expand it this side. So now, in order to take the application DB context and create a database with its corresponding table, which is called search history, we need to go and connect to our database that we just mentioned. So I'll open my SQL Server Management Studio while it's busy running. We will go inside of our Solution Explorer from the bottom up. The second one, it's called App Settings or JSON. Double click it. Here we are going to create what we call a connection string. A connection string will allow us to connect to the database, the search engine. Then we create a database name so that when we go and run migration, it will go and take the database that we're creating, the tables, and then go and put it inside of the SQL Server. So you can use any database of your choice, but if you use SQLite, so this will be different. So I'm looking for a server name. I'll just grab that server name there. Then I'll just close. You can close this. In fact, I'll just leave it. Go back. I'll just hold it on my clipboard. So I'll press enter and then double quotes. Then you can see that I'm suggested with two options there. I'll go with connection string because that's what I'm looking for. After that, put colons. When you put colons, this is auto-generated for you. Press enter. And then now you need to provide the name of your connection string. Then I'll put double quotes and I'll say, I'll call this weather string. You can call it anything. Then I'll put colons there. So every time whenever I want to grab this connection string, I'll have to refer to weather string. So the first thing that is required is for you to provide the server name. So you just type the word server. And then after that, you're going to put an assignment operator or an equal sign. Then paste your server name. Then we go back to the double quote. This is a statement. It's done. We close it with semicolon. Followed by database. So this allows us to create a database name. So you put an equal sign. So let's call this CT weather DB. We collapse this so we can move this way. Then that is done. After that, we deal with the security issue now. So we're going to write trusted underscore connection. So this is to tell SQL Server that when there is a request that is made in order to create a database, please trust it. Okay. And then we're going to set these to true. Then close. Then lastly, we will need trust server. So the one that I just explained is this one. I sometimes mix them. Certificate. The spelling here it's important, otherwise your migration will fail. Okay, so we're going to set this to true. The last one, you can close it or you don't have to close it. Make sure that it's within that code. That's all you need. You press save. You can close this. You won't need it anytime soon. So after doing that, now you have to go back to the heart of your application, which is program.cs. Double click program. This is what run our application. So for here, you don't have to know what this is doing for now. All you need is to locate the statement that I just highlighted. And then between it and this builder services, put your cursor in the middle, open a bit of space there. Because we need to register the application DB context that we did here as a service so that when our application is running, it can create or connect to the database immediately. So what we need to do now is to register application DB context with its dependency injection. So what we did inside of round brackets, we refer to that as DI or dependency injection. So what we are about to do here, it must be able to tell programs.cs on how to create the database context whenever it is needed. So when we register services, we always say builder dot, it's a service. So you're going to type services. This syntax does not change, it always remain the same. And then we are looking for, because we are dealing with application DB, so you're going to say add DB context. Pay attention to what it comes with. So you can see that there is angle brackets. So it's asking which service do you want to register. We created an application DB context. So you're going to type exactly as you have named your class that we did. I called mine application. That is wrong. Application DB context. It must match. You can see that now I'm having troubles. So the easiest way, go there, copy it, go back, pass it there. Must stand like that. Then after that, we put round brackets, and then inside there we create an arrow function. So I'll say we like to use option, goes into, I'll move it to the next line so you can see all. So option goes into options. This is a middleman now that we're gonna use in order to create the database context. So we'll use dot. Now we need to specify the database flavor that we are using. So you say dot use SQL. So all of them, you'll get them. If you are using SQLite, you'll see it here. You can see use SQL, Azure SQL, and all of those things. So you just say use SQL, turn yellow. There's a trick that I have that anything that turns yellow, 90% of the time, it needs round brackets in front of it. So now I need to get the connection string so that I can be able to go and create the database that we specified inside of connection string. So we're going to say builder dot, what are we looking for? Remember, all of this is configurations. The DB context options, they are all configuration. Then you put a full stop. What do you want? I want to get connection. So you type get, find connection string, turn yellow again. So that tells you that always make sure that you have the closing round bracket, because when it's a lot, some people tend to leave the closing one, which causes issues. It's a connection string, so you put double quotes there. I'll go back to my app settings, go and grab the name of my connection string. So for you guys, some it might be default connection string. So I'll just pass it there and then I'll close. That is important. Okay, for now, we'll just leave it like that. I think because we know that at some stage we might as well do it, we are going to get a service. It's fine. I think we'll do that when we get there so that I don't confuse you guys. So now let's go and create an actual database. So we're going to go back to tools, and then look at package manager. You get your package manager console, or down there at the bottom you can see it, it's there. So you just press it and then hover there and then expand, so you can see that PM there. Now to add migration, you just type the following commands: add dash migration. Give it a name, could be any name. So I'll just say first, doesn't matter, this is just a string, first migration, as long as you will know that it will assist you. Then press enter. Just give it a second because everything needs to pass. So you'll see it by this red square there. When you see it, you know that it's still running. As soon as it's done, you will see it there, it will change and it will tell you there. If you have any error, all these types of errors, this will fail. So it's coming all right. Okay, perfect. So now it's fine. So the last thing that you need to do is to update your database. So let's just say update dash database. Then you do it like that. This is the one that fails a lot. Usual migration, it's rare that it fails unless if you have like obvious errors in your application. So you can see now that I have, says that I have this table. Say there is already an object name search histories in the database. That's gonna be a problem. So okay, let's go. I'll connect this. Okay, not going to cut this so that you guys can be able to see what is happening. Let me refresh. City weather, that is today. See. Okay, city weather, that's the one that I have. Okay, let me just give it a name because I'm not sure it's coming. Let me just change the name. So I'll just say, oh, the issue it's not this. So it is the model class. Let me just, let's go there on this one. The issue is coming from here. So just say search history. And then the issue with this is that now you have to go and run another migration to get the commands that you did before. Press an up arrow, and then we can say fix table name. Press enter. Okay, up arrow again when you say update database. Okay, see, this is an issue that needs to be solved because it's still doing that. Okay, so I need to delete the first migration. So I'm just gonna delete this and then delete. it as well. And then I will delete this database. Okay. I wish I can be able to find the other one so that this will be easy. Can be that one. Let's see. So use that. Okay, let's see where application. Okay, let's try again. Let's try again. So what I'm gonna do first, I'll say go build clean solution, and then I'll say build again, rebuild solution. Okay, so we called it search history there. Let's go back here. Okay, change automatically. That's perfect for us. Now let's do it again. Go all the way down. Fix table name. So just add one letter there. And let's see if it will still pick up the search history. Let's check inside there. Okay, it's picking up the new name. That's fine. Let's see. Perfect. We are all good now. So we can go back, refresh, and then let's wait. Okay, let me refresh again because I'm not seeing my database. In fact, we can just do this. Grab this, close it, then go to Visual Studio so that we don't have to come back. I'll say View, Server Explorer, and then connect to a server. Then I'll just paste that right there. Okay, it seems like we already have it. Let me just refresh. Yeah, my machine is crying now, so it froze. I'm just gonna give it a second. Yep. Okay, Microsoft SQL Server. Then let's see if we're gonna get our databases. I even forgot what we call this in the database. I can't even go back there. It should be where now. Okay, that's weird because everything is created, but we don't see the data. Yeah, it's that one. And I'll click OK. Now you can see that we have the green plug there. Collapse it, table. There we go. There we go. It's opening the designer now so that you can see our database. There we go. Perfect. So now I don't have to go back to this guy. I can close this guy. Done. So now let's progress. So now we need a simple class that will be able to match the JSON structure that will come from our API. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a couple of classes. I will explain as I go what these classes will do. So we're going to go back to our model, right-click model, add class. And then we are going to call this geo. The naming there should give you a hint, geocoding response. So this class main job will be to grab the response that comes from the city search. So whenever a search takes place, the answer that an API will provide will be collected by this guy. So that is it. So what we're gonna do here is because we know that we're going to have a lot of cities that we're gonna do. We're not designing this application just to grab one city. We want to make sure that the user is able to search multiples. So I'm just going to use a list that will hold the results that will be returned by an API. So prop, I'm creating a property once again. I'll remove the data type. I want this to be a list. Again, you can see that it has angle brackets. And then I'll call this geo result. So this is, we're going to call this property result, by the way. So when you do something like this, you got to ask yourself that you have a property here called the result. So what does the result look like to you? What is the results to you? Could be a combination of information. What are you looking for? The answer is on the scenario of our program. So what does that look like? So that is why I need to have a class that will represent what I consider as results. So think of an object. An object has attributes. So what will be the attributes of these geo results? That is what we need to do. So I want to create a class for this because these guys, they do the same thing. I'll put them on the same place. It's allowed as well. So just say public class. I'm creating this class below here. Class always have a body, which is the curly braces. So this class will represent one CT results, that the response that we're going to get. What do we need to get? I need to know the name of the city. I need the latitude, I need the longitude, and I need the country as well. It might be tempted to go and copy the ones that you did, but please don't. So say prop, and you'll see that it's different. I don't need an ID here. So I'll just say string, and then I'll call this name just to differentiate with the ones that we have. This is the response that comes from an API. And then I'll need the latitude, and you can see now I'm using small letters. Prop, double for longitude, and then lastly the country. Prop, and then this is country. Okay, I don't like these green things here because I know they have a tendency of causing issues. Okay, we've already explained what each one does. Save it. And then now we need another one that we're going to call it weather API response. So this is what we are expecting to get. But how will an API respond? So right click model again, add class. Then let's call this weather API response. And click add. Okay, so now we need a property that will store the current weather section that will be returned by the API itself. So we are going to say public So we're going to call this current weather. We want to grab the current weather. So you can see that I'm getting an error already. Current weather, that is fine. And then we're going to do our get and setters. It's still a property. So that tells you that we have an issue there. I'll just copy it. So this, again, this property's job will be to store the current weather. So now we need to create this. I'll do the same thing. I'm going to create this class because we need to know what the current weather looks like. What is its attribute? So just say, and then like that. So now the current weather will look like. You can add more information based on, I'm not an expert in weather things. You can go and grab other information that you want, but I'm just going to show you 3. So I'm going to create a property. I'll need a temperature. Temperature, I'm going to use double as well. And then I'll call this temperature. And then I will need the wind speed. So this will be double. Wind speed. And then lastly, I need a property that will be able to store the date and time of the weather data. So we'll just go and say I'll use a string. Then we'll call this time. Then I'll get my get and setters. Okay, save it. Now we are getting there. So now I'm done with the classes in terms of data that will be stored. So what I want now is to represent how data will be displayed to a user. We have a folder that, remember we said the view below, that's user interface. But I created a view model so that I can add more information that I want without tampering with the database. The views, it pulls from a database directly. So the view models, I don't want to tamper with that because I know there's some information that I will add that does not exist into the database. So to do that, I'm going to create a class here so that I can be able to display more information to the user there. So right click view model, add class. Okay, and then we are going to call this guy weather search view. You gotta be specific here that this is just a view model class. Okay, what is the job of this? It is used to send all the data that is needed by the view in just one object. So I'm just going to open a space there because since I'm not adding data in a database, we already have data that sits there. So I can pull them from different models and be able to display the information that I want. So all I need is to pass in the model folder. So I can give this guy access to all the model folders that we have, the model classes, sorry. So you'll say using the name of your application dot, we're looking for models. Then you can just end there. Okay, so the first thing that I want here is I want to, the properties that you're going to create here need to match per se. It's not really a must, but I will advise that make sure that it matches with what you have in your model class. So since we say that we're gonna merge all of this model class in one so that we can be able to have a nice view for the user, then we're going to pull all of that. So I'll pick up a paste here because we have done this cprop string city name. We already have that. So that will store the city that the user will type from the search box, and then prop string, and then we'll say result city name. So this one will store the city name that is returned by an API. Okay, prop string. This will store the country, and then prop double, and then this will store the latitude. So I'll copy this, longitude. Okay, and then the next one will store the temperature. And then in fact it's double. So the next one will store the wind speed, and then prop. This will store the weather time that is returned by an API. And then now we need a property that will be able to tell the view whether the information that is coming back was found. So just say prop, because the answer will be yes or no. I'll go with bool for boolean. Then we can ask, did you find the result? We phrase this in a question format. And then just in case didn't find anything, we should be able to have a message that will be shown if there's something else wrong. So prop string, and then we're going to call this error message. And then lastly, we're going to have a property that will be able to store the search history record from the database. So this will be a bigger one. List search history, because that's what we want. And then we are going to call this search history list, because we want this to start by creating a new one. So I'm just going to say new search history, and then we put the constructor sign there. It was a long one, but yes, we need that. That is that. So now let's go to the main star of our application, the service. So the service, this is the guy that is going to connect with our API. So we're going to create a class here. You right click, add class. Okay, let's give it some time. Then we'll call this weather service add. So this will be special. There's a couple of things that we need to import. The first one is that we need to allow our APIs to talk to all of our model classes. So I'll say using the name of our application dot models, close. Now we need a statement that we need to import here that will allow us to use HttpClient and the related classes that will be associated with the web request. So just say using, not in capital letters, using systems .net .http. We close it. And then the most important one is that we know that APIs, their data format or structure is JSON. So we're just going to say using system dot text dot JSON. Okay, we can leave it. We'll import more as we go. Okay, so now this service class, its job is to call the API that we are going to consume in a moment. And then once it consumes it, we don't care what the API is designed, like we don't care about that. And we don't want our controllers to be messed up. So we want to make sure that we keep the API logic out of our controller in this case so that the controller will stay clean and simple. So what we're going to do now is that we are going to create a field that will be able to store the HTTP client object, and its job will be to send a request to an API directly. You can see that it already has given me. So what I want, I'll just say I accept. So that guy, what it does is to allow the HTTP client, which is the green one there, to send request to an API. Remember, this happens using request. That's why people put it inside of a controller, because controller, its job is to handle request. So we're gonna do this here. Right, so when you do it like this, it needs a constructor that you are going to inject that HTTP client into it, the same way as we've done with our application DB. So I'll just press enter, CTOR. Okay, so now we inject HTTP client and then we give it a name. So I'll explain now what this statement does. So what happens here is that it stores the injected HTTP client into a private field. That is for security reason. All right, so we are done with the setup. Now we can go in with the start of consuming our API. So now we need to create a method that will be able to get the city. So this method, its job will be in charge for searching a city by using the geocoding API. So we are going to use the async method. So remember that the async means that the method can run without blocking the application while it's waiting for an API response. So I always say that when you're connecting into an external data source, you don't want that when it gets to that part, it waits, because it needs that to make a decision. You don't want that the connection or that session, it waits because it didn't receive any data. That will cause your application to break. So you want to make sure that all of these things, they are able to run concurrently. And in order to do that, we use async task method that allows all of these things to run at the same time without blocking any service or any request that is taking place. So that is why we do that. So we are going to create a method. So say public, it's an async method. So you just say async. Async goes with task to run concurrent task. Okay, and then inside there, we said we are looking for what? A method that will allow the user to search for a city using geocoding. So we have something that's going to assist us, the class that we call the georesult. Remember we said in what does the results look like? And we have attribute inside of georesult. Then we get this is the name of our method, and write ct get ct. I think you can give it any name you want. Get ct async, that will be the name of my method. So it doesn't end here. I need, because we want the user to search by a city, I need to create a parameter. So I'll say city name. I'm using CapCut to record this, so it has given me a limit of 2 hours. I'm close by. So if it cuts, then we will have 2 videos. Okay, so what is happening now? We created an async method to say, you method get city async. Please run without blocking the application while you are still waiting to get a response from an API. And you API, what are you doing now? What is type of response that you're talking about? The user is searching for a name, and when we get the result, we specify on how the result is supposed to look like inside of geo result class. Okay, so now we need to be able to build the geocoding API using the link so that we can be able to get the city name that is typed by the user. So I'm sort of like going to create a URL link. So I'm going to use a string. I'll call this URL, and then I'm going to assign this. So here's where it gets a little bit different. So I need to go and find a free public URL. So I'm just going to open my browser, and then I will search for an API. Could say geo coding API, Open-Meteo. Let's see what we have. Okay. Okay, we're looking for this API URL. So we'll go with that. So you can see now it has a search. They've searched Berlin there because that's what they've searched there. We're going to customize this because at this stage we don't want to put a city there because we don't know what the city will look like. So the best way, just look at this point there, the API endpoint, they give you the link. They will say that they say it accepts a city term and return a list of matching location. URL parameters are listed below. So you have the parameters there. So we're just gonna keep it safe for us. So what I'm gonna do is I'll grab it from here, copy this, go back to my application, and then I'll paste this. So now going to use string interpolation here. So I'll put the $sign. Because it's a string, it needs to go inside of down quotes, then I'll paste. So the reason that I didn't copy Berlin or any city that you want, you're designing this for a user. So what you're gonna do is that you grab whatever the user types, you've already declared it there as a variable or a parameter. So I'm just gonna copy it. I'll put a placeholder there. That is why I use string interpolation to make it easy. And then you can go back if you forget the syntax there. They want the count, so I can copy the count there for me, including, so it's city to count the returns. So I'll just copy the and sign and the equal sign there for me. Copy, go back, paste it there. And then for now, I'll just need one city to be returned. I don't need a whole lot of things. That is up to you. You can customize this as you go. That's perfect. So now we have a URL that is able to get the city by a user. So now we need to send a GET request to the API to be able to store that feedback that we get. So we're going to, whenever we talk about the request, just know that we'll be working with HTTP. But because I'm looking for a response, I'll just say HTTP response response message. I'm looking for a message. And then we can call this message, and let's call it response rather. And then we're going to use the await keyword. I like that. So let me move here. I'll explain what this does. So now this line, what it does is to send a GET request. And then this is a variable and object name there to the API, that API. And then whatever information that we get, we are storing that request. That is what is happening. So if it's successful, we'll get a response. If it's not, we'll still get a response. So we need to do that. I'll say response dot so that we can get the response. So we'll go with ensure success status code, turned yellow, that's a method. So this, what is happening here is that it will check whether the API call, it was successful or it was not. And if it was not successful, then there will be an error that will be thrown here. Okay, we are getting there. Now, if we get a response, we know that we are going to communicate in JSON. So now we need to be able to read that response as a text, not as a JSON file. So we're going to do that. We'll say string, we'll call this JSON. And then we'll say await. Then we say, let's see, okay, tell it since it's on fire today. So what is happening now, we will read the response that is coming onto us in the form of a JSON feedback. And then we want to read it as text because this is C#. Okay, we are not fully done with reading the response here. We need to convert it so that C# is able to understand it. So now we need to convert that text response that is coming back to us in a JSON format into a C# object. So we're going to say geocoding response. We have a class that we already created there. And then I'll call this geo. I'll retain the same name. Then I'll say assigned. Then we'll say JSON. JSON serializer. Struggle to pronounce that word. Serializer dot deserialize. We'll go this side. Then we pass in our class there, the geocoding response. Then what do we want? So you're going to convert this JSON into a C# object. So that is what we are doing now. Okay, so now let me move this way. So now if the statement, we need to check whether an API is able to give us results or not. So we're going to use an if statement for that. So we'll just say if, then we can say if geo coding response, this is too long. Let me reduce this. Geo response, okay, that's fine. If geo response is not null and geo response dot results is not null, and this is up to you guys however way you want to check. Geo response dot result dot count is greater than 0. is greater than 0. Let's see if I can push this. Okay, perfect. So this statement, once again, it checks whether an API is able to return particular results. So if this is the case, then we'll know that if it's not null, it returns at least one result, and then we know that we have found a city that we want. Then we can say return geo response dot results. Then we say whatever that you find in that location, which is subscript 0, that will be the first city that is supplied, and then we know we have found our city in there. Other than that, then we are going to return null. So this is just to say that if you don't find anything, we're just going to return null, meaning that we didn't find a city. Sharp. It's not the best way. You can return anything you want. You can just print a message if you want. That is fine. Now let's do a method that will get the weather information in terms of the latitude and longitude. So we'll just say public. They all async methods. See if I can write async, and then task. And then we have a class there, the current weather, that holds the attribute. Then we can call this get weather, or anything that you want to call it async. Okay, I'm going to declare variables there in the form of parameters. We are looking for latitude and longitude, so I'll just say double latitude double longitude. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. We'll go back to our API. So we're going to build a URL link that we'll use to retrieve latitude and longitude of the city. So it's the same, but let's just do it. We'll say string URL, then we'll use string interpolation. So I'm just gonna go and copy this part there, then we'll just leave it there. Then paste. Okay, didn't even copy it. Cut my code. Okay, now we'll have to go back. Okay, so we'll say weather forecast now. So that is up to, remember we said we wanted to get, let's just say we tick everything that we want here. So latitude, longitude, okay, that is fine. Okay, just gonna search for city and see what is happening there. There you go. This is what I'm looking for. That part. Okay, so I'm looking for forecast. I'll just copy forecast. I can't assign a value now because I don't know what the user will search. So I'm just gonna go there, delete up until the forward slash of v1. And then I'll just paste my forecast question mark latitude. And then we have an assignment operator equals sign. We have latitude. We're going to do this again for longitude. Then I'll combine these with longitude. Let's go back, open a new browser there. Okay, and then I'll just paste there, not two rows, just one. And then we have longitude there. Okay, let's see what more, and then it should show us the current weather. Let me just take it there and see if that will make any change. Yeah, there you go. So just copy it. Let me see. Okay, there's more information here. You can just scroll down to see what you want, but that's fine for us. Then I'll put an end there. And then I just want the current underscore weather. Then I'm going to set these to true. Okay, so that is current underscore weather, and then we can close our statement. Okay, so now we are able to use this URL to get the current weather using the latitude, longitude of a city. So again, just like we did, I'm not going to repeat this. We have done it. So I'm just going to go there. You send a GET response, and then you're going to check if your request succeeded, and then interpret the response that is coming as a JSON, then convert that into a C# object, which is what the statement did. So we're just gonna go there, paste it. Okay, we just need to make some few changes. HTTP, we can still call it a response there, that is fine. And then we just need to change here, so that can be geo, that will be weather. It's not even coming. So let's just type weather API response. So I'm just gonna copy that, paste it, and then of course we have to give it a new name. So that will be weather. Okay, everything is fine. And lastly, we are going to say return weather response dot current weather, and we close it. Save it. I'm left with 28 minutes before this guy closes. So now let's go back to our problem.cs so we can register our service. Double click it. So now we need to be able to register this service. So now let's go and search. We need to find, because the position where you put this thing matters. You make a mistake, we can't be able to run our application. So at first, when we started, I asked you guys to find this statement. So we're still going to use it as well as our place. So you don't want to put that request your HTTP client below it. So we're going to put it there. So first, we are going to add HTTP client in order to support the application. We'll then use the HTTP client to call that weather API that we just created. So we'll just say builder dot services dot add HTTP client and yellow, and that's the one. Okay, that is important. So now we can register our service. So now again, we'll use that because we need this before we can register our service. So now You're going to put this here, not after. Please, not after. There. So let's register all the service that we did. Builder.services dot add scoped. This is a scope service. I'll explain now. Let's inject our application, which is CT weather tracker app dot services. You can get this, it's just that it's safe to do this weather service. And then just close it. If you can access it, just you can do that. So what is happening now? We are registering our weather service class using dependency injection. So what it does is that it will tell the system to create a weather service and to automatically assign a request in a form of HttpClient to it. Okay, so now let's go to our controller. We're almost done. Inside of our controller, we have the default controller that has been created. So right click there, add. This is not a class, it's called a controller. We're gonna add an empty one. Okay, let's go and add. You gotta make sure that it has a suffix controller, that is important. We'll call this weather control. So here we're going to pass a whole lot of statement that we're using. We need a statement that will allow us to use the model. So that will be using the name of our application.models. We close. We need another statement that will use the services. So I'm just gonna copy from here. And then dot services. We close. We need another statement that will access the view model. And then we'll need entity framework as well. So it's coming from Microsoft dot entity framework core. Then we close. I think the other ones should come automatically as we go. All right. So this controller's job, it will be to handle all the weather related action for our entire application. So here we're going to do the same thing that we did to connect or to create a reference to our database so that we can be able to save and read the search history. If we didn't have that part, we're not going to do this. But because I want to also incorporate the database, we need to do it. So just going to create a private read only, just like we did with HttpClient. And then I want to grab application DB context, application DB context. Then I can call this context. You know the drill. We need a constructor. And then inside of this constructor, in fact, let's just do all of them because we also need to pass in that service there. So just say private read only. Then we need weather service. Then that will be weather service. Okay. And then we'll need our controller. So we'll start with application DB context. Then we'll call this context, comma. Now we do for the weather. And then we can call this weather service. Perfect. So now all we need to do is to store the database context into the private folder. Store the weather service into a private folder. So just start with underscore context and then underscore weather service. Perfect. So now we need a method again that is going to display the first page when the user opened the application for the first time. I'll just use this one, but we need to change this to an async method. So that will be async task. Then we change that guy there to, and then we can leave it as an index method. All right, so now we need to use a link in order to perform some queries. So what do we need here the first time is to load the search history that is coming from the database in any order. I'm going to sort this in descending order using the date. So, but before we get to that, I need to create a new view model object that will be sent to the user so that they can see that. So let's do that. We can just say where the service view model. I'm creating a new object, and we can call this view model. Let me just collapse this. Perfect. So now let's do that. Let's load the search history from our database by descending order and by the date. So we're going to say view model, the object that we just created now. Dot. We're looking for search history list, and we can just wait a minute until you get all the information that you need. Then we can say underscore context so that you go inside of our database. Now search my database table, which is called search history. And then I want you to order these, order by descending. You can do the opposite. And to do that, and yellow, we need brackets. So I'm going to create an arrow function, a middleman that will say, go inside of this table, see what is inside there, and grab the information that I want, and return it to me by descending order. So we'll just say x goes to x. We need the date when it was searched on, and then I can say bring everything. Let's say to list async. Then you close it. Okay, and then we return the view model because that is the star of this method. Right, done with that method. So now we need another method that will run when the user clicks, when they type in a search box, they search for a city and they click submit for the form. So this will give the user the form to search, so that we're going to use HTTP post attribute to allow us to give the user so that we can capture the information that is coming from the user. So public async task action result. Then we'll call this, it needs to match with that guy there. The only difference is that we're going to pass the view model as a parameter. So we called weather search view model, and we're going to give this a model object. Okay, first we need to do some checks in the form of validation. We don't want the user to leave this box empty. So I'm going to use an if statement for that. Then we're going to say string dot is null or white space. We don't want them not to type anything or press space bar. Then we can say view model dot is running this test to the city name. Okay, if they do it like that, then we can say view model dot, then we can send an error message We can send a message and we can just say, please enter a city name. That's it. Then we can close that. All right. So now, after doing that, we need to reload the page so that it doesn't stop there and crash or stop the application. So we are going to get the same information that we did there, the view model, all of this, because I want to reload the page instead of it stopping. And then where's my return statement? It seems like I deleted it. And we return that. Okay, and that's the return statement. It's not supposed to be there. It should be here. So it means that we are not done with that one. So okay, now what we need now is that we need to call the service to search for the city that has been entered by the user. So let's do that. I'm going to use try and catch for this statement. Okay, I'll do the catch part there. So I'm going to call the result. Remember, we have a class that represent how the result is supposed to look like. Then we can call this city result. Then we can say await. Then you weather service, please get me the results by the city, and then give it to the user on the user interface, but show them the city name that we want. And then we close. Okay, so now we are going to validate if the API has found this particular city. So I'm just gonna take what this guy is giving me. Okay, so we are going to say if the city name is null, then we are going to write an error message. Just gonna grab that statement, put it there, and then we can just say city was not found. Please try another city, or any error message that you want to throw, that will be sufficient. Okay, you don't want this to stop, so we'll copy that statement, put it there. Okay, and what will fix the errors. Okay, so now I'm missing the curly brace for try. We'll do the catch later on as the last thing. We are not done now. So now in 5 minutes we'll be stopping the video, and then I'll do another one just to complete it, because CapCut will stop the video, the recording. So now we need to call the weather API using the latitude and the longitude. So just gonna do it there. We're still inside of the try catch. So we're going to call our current weather, then give me a name, then we're gonna call this and we say wait a bit. While you're busy waiting, weather service, please come here and give me the weather that I want. I'm looking for the get weather, and then what I'm looking for from you is that I need the city result, and from the city result grab me a latitude. Use city result, grab me the longitude. That's all I need from you. Okay, now, so we need to be able to copy the API results into the view model so that the normal view can be able to display to the user. I don't need validation now. You can do that if you want. So I'll say view model dot result city name. Then we assign city result. Now we put it to the name. We close. So I'm just gonna do this because we're gonna do this a couple of times. So we're looking for country, and then we'll just say city result dot country, close it. In fact, let me do this. Okay. And then we'll need the latitude. And then I'll say grab me the latitude. And then we'll need the longitude. And then I'll say give me the longitude. Please don't keep it as capital letters, both of them. And then we'll need the temperature. Then I'll say give me the temperature. So it's gonna give me just like that. Dot temperature means that I'm missing temperature inside there. Okay, the city results does not give me that, so we put this inside of current weather dot temperature. Perfect. Okay, and then we need wind speed. It's sitting inside of current, then wind speed as well. And then I'll just paste weather there, and then we'll need time. So that means that we say weather time. We are not done. View model dot as a result. So when we get to this part, it means that everything is sorted. So I'm just gonna set this boolean to true. So it means that we have already found the result when we get to this part. Now let's create a new object after this that will represent the search history so that we can be able to store inside of a database. So we're going to call this search history. Then we can call this history. And then we can say new search history. It's an object. Remember, an object must be closed like a normal statement. So I will need city name. That will be city result. I'll need to grab the name, comma, and then country. That's fine. Please give more. Latitude. That's fine. Longitude. I'm happy. Then search more. One more. Nah, it's stopped now. So just searched on, and then we say date, time, but now. Because it's the last one, we can put a comma, so we need to close it. Okay, now we go outside of that. 7 minutes, this recording will stop. Now, so we need to be able to take this new search record to go to the database. So we'll use underscore context. Then we point it to the data, the table that we call search history. And then we can say add. Then what is it adding? The history. Then we just have this guy there. Then we close it. Then now we need to save this into a new record into our database itself. So just say await underscore context dot save changes as sync. Okay, now we are going to the catch part. I'm sure you were waiting for this. Okay, so now we're going to display a simple error message if something goes wrong during the API. So we already have a lot of statements here that display. Just gonna copy this, put it there. So we can just say like something went wrong while you were searching for weather data or anything you want. It's up to you what you want to display. Again, when it gets to this, you don't want it to stop. You want it to return to the main application. Okay. Okay, we need to move one return statement so that it is out, so we can solve this error because we have this error there. It needs a return statement. So I just want to see where I missed it. Okay. Okay, just want to make sure I do have the first one there. That is the return. That is inside of if statement, so that is fine. And then I started my try catch. And then try catch, the try. Yeah, I see I made a mistake here. I made a mistake here. I got too excited here without putting the. Okay, that's one. Okay, that's fine. The catch. You guys, you just allow me to do this. Copy two messages there. No, I would have missed that one. So we're going to cut this inside of the cage. We only put the message to print. So that should solve the issue. In 3 minutes, the video will stop. In fact, let me just, because I have the views, so I can quickly finish this before 3 minutes. So I'll right click views, add. I'm adding a new folder. This folder will be called weather. I can finish this within 2 hours. And then inside of this weather, I'm just going to add a view. It will be called index view. And then I'll just go and find, I have all of this. I'll share with you guys this part. Then we just gonna go, before I fix that error, I'm gonna go to share underscore layout, because I want to put this inside of my current. So let's can be home. So this will be weather, and then this will be index. And then we can call this city weather tracker. 2 minutes, in fact 1 minute. So let's go there all the way. Okay, I know it's caused by this guy. So we called our city weather tracker. It should be fine. Okay, I'm gonna save everything, run 1 minute with few seconds. 1 minute, 30 seconds left. Okay, it's coming, it's coming. I don't want to run another video. It's just for 2 minutes, just to show you how it works. So left with 20 seconds before everything stops. And that is if we don't have an error. 10 seconds, 5 seconds. I'll do another one.